Kia ora koutou everyone, no mai haere mai. Welcome to our March formal meeting for Northland Regional Council. So we will make a start and we will open with a karakia, no housekeeping today due to the fact that we're Zooming. Kia inoi tātou. Tēnei o, tēnei mātou, he kai kanehera. He kawanga I ngā whakatuna, I ngā tikanga, ki uta, ki tai, kia rewa, e ngā iwi katoa o tētai tokoro. Humi e, hui e, tae ki e.
Yeah.
All right. So we have, we'll move on to item 3, which is apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Blakey today. Are there any further apologies? No. So I'll move that those apologies be accepted. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Amy. All those, or anyone against? Carried. So I would just like to acknowledge the huge impact that COVID is having on all of us, staff, councillors and everyone else in Northland and in New Zealand, and the issues associated with staff working from home, but also those that have contracted Omicron and the symptoms of fatigue and not feeling well that go with those. So we understand and we certainly hope that you're all recovering if you are sick and that we are back to normal. Unfortunately, I did hear yesterday that there is a new variant, but it certainly isn't in New Zealand yet, so hopefully that stays away as well. We also do have staff vacancies, so we are filling them as quickly as we can, but it does leave some gaps in our ability to fulfil on everything that we'd like to. Okay, so with that in mind, we will take declarations of conflicts of interest as we go, but we have got a couple of items that we would like to add. Malcolm, did you want to add the Biosecurity and Biodiversity?
Yeah, Chair, thank you very much. And my apologies, councillors, but we realised that we didn't include the Biosecurity and Biodiversity Working Party minutes into item 9.1. So with leave of council, I'd like to just table that as a late item for inclusion in 9.1. So the minutes were actually circulated to all councillors this morning early, and we'll make sure that there's a link to those minutes made available for the public.
Thank you, Malcolm. And also we have another supplementary item 7.9. Do I need to move that that's accepted as well? I think I do.
Chair, I'm not sure if we've got anyone else, but I mean, in my agenda, it's actually in the agenda. So
is it?
I'm not sure
okay.
if it was published as such, so it should be fine.
All right. Okay. All right. We'll leave that as if we don't, it's already in there, 7.9, so that's fine. Okay, so we can move on to item 5, page 6, which is confirmation of minutes of council meeting 22nd of February 2022. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Jack and Rick, thank you. Any matters arising from those minutes? Malcolm, you've still got your hand up. Is that to comment or a hangover? No.
Apologies, Chair, I need to take it down.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. So with no matters arising, all those in favour? Anyone against? Carried. 5.2, the action sheet, which is on page 15. Oops. Just the 2 actions there. One completed and one noted. Could I have a mover and seconder for those actions, please? Thank you, Marty. Seconder, Amy. Any comments or questions on those? No, very good. So all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 6, which is our financial reports. 6.1, financial report to 28th of February 2022, page 17. So just the one recommendation there. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved, Rick, thank you.
Seconded, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Joss. Bruce, would you like to speak to the financial report?
Thanks, Chair. I've got an update on the financial report because the Ericsson's global report on our commercial investments came in on Wednesday last week after the agenda was written. I'll just give you a brief update. So the original financial result in item 6.1 presented a net surplus after transfers to and from reserves of $7.26 million for the year to the end of February. And when compared to the corresponding budget, this represented 760,000 better than budget variance. So I did note that this result did not include any returns from the managed fund investments, and we've now got those in. So the Ericsson Global Monthly Report for February, which we received on Wednesday, showed that the funds experienced a monthly negative return in February of $565,000. So for the 8 months of the financial year so far, the investment funds have now incurred a $118,000 loss. So after adjusting the financial report to reflect the actual February losses, the year-to-date surplus after reserve transfers has reduced from 7.26 million to 6.69 million. So that represents a variance of 195,000 better than year-to-date budget. And so far, there's been no need at this stage of the year to book any transfer from the OPEX reserve. So that's just a brief update as to what's happened since we received the Ericsson's report.
Kia ora, thank you very much, Bruce. Do I go to our independent financial advisor, Stuart?
Sorry, my apologies for that because I wasn't being unmuted, and it's just been released. Now, in terms of looking at those changes, and I did speak to Bruce yesterday, that we do want to be considering some elements of the SIPO in relation to whether or not it is enabling us to consider a wider range of limits in relation to cash. Because as you probably know, that we have a 20% maximum percentage of long-term and short-term funds that can at any one time be held in cash. And that's kind of interesting in the sense that it is also in its own right quite restrictive in terms of being able to be nimble. And that was something that I was quite interested to have some further conversations with Ericsson and of course with at next week's Property and Investment Committee meeting.
Sure, thank you, Stuart. Yes, we've got investment and property as well as audit and risk next week as well, so potentially quite timely. Danny, any comments from you?
No, nothing from me, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Malcolm?
No, Chair, there's nothing specific that I can add other than, I mean, if the current trend continues, it looks as though we will have to use the OPEX reserve before the end of the year. And I mean, given the changing nature of our investment returns, we do need to relook at our funding models going forward. But I think all of this is best dealt with at the investment subcommittee so that formal recommendations can come back to council.
Yes, thank you, Malcolm. And it certainly has been signalled, this turn of events, so it wasn't as if it was a surprise. So questions, comments from councillors? Rick?
No, I just want to say I totally agree with Malcolm. Best dealt with in investment and property next week, and Stuart, I know we'll discuss it in depth then. So I did have a talk to Jonathan, and as we know, we've been, and as you said, Penny, been expecting this for a while. His comment was expect a bumpy ride, but the portfolio is performing well considering. So I think we knew it was coming, and it's who knows what's around the corner, but let's have a further discussion next week. So I don't think, considering we knew it was coming, we're doing pretty well, really. Thank you. And thanks, Bruce, for that update too. Put it in nice plain English for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Rick. And we have already taken some evasive action. So, yeah. Any further comments from any other councillors? No. Okay. So we can take a vote on accepting the report. All those in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? Carried. Now, it's just come to my attention, talking finances or audit and risk, that Councillor Kitchen is not on the line, and he did have a call out this morning. So, Melanie, could we register his apology as well? He did apologise for council only time, so we can follow that through to this one as well, please. Is there, can I have a move and seconder just to accept Toss's apology? Thank you, Jack and Amy. Anyone against? Carried. Sorry about that, Melanie. So we'll move on to 6.2, which is page 21, regional rates collection. And we have just the one recommendation there, that the rates collection update be received. Could I have a move and seconder, please?
I'll move that.
Kerry and Marty, thank you. Are there any questions or comments, or is there a staff member that would like to speak to this?
Thanks, Chair. I can speak to it briefly. So year to date, we are up on our rates collection in comparison to this time last year. So you see overall, the 3 district councils have collected a total of 53.6% of our annual rate strike in the 6 months to December 2021. And in the comparison, last year it was 53.2%. And if you scroll down through the report, you can see which of the district councils are up on last year and which are down. And also we present the collection of the outstanding rates arrears balances there as well. And you'll notice there's some variability there, but overall we are up year to date, so it's a positive thing.
Yes, and pleasing to see, actually, given the current climate financially, and also all the well-beings, really. So, Bruce, there has been some impact from the Maori rates arrears changes, correct?
Correct, because that that amount of Maori freehold land in the far north was written off last year, so that balance has decreased in this current year. And you recall that write-off was due to the legislative requirements.
Yep, thank you. All right, so any further questions, comments from councillors? I didn't see any hands up earlier. No. Okay, all those in favour of accepting that report? Against? Carried. So we can move on to number 7, decision-making matters. 7.1 is councillor appointment to Waihara Fire Recovery Governance Group, and that's Councillor Kitchen. So that's on page 26.
Yes, I'll move. I'm happy.
Thank you, Rick. Moved Rick, seconded.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Terry. Yes, and just to reiterate, Colin's not going to be receiving any financial assistance with this, and he's quite happy with that. It's outlined in the background there that it will be via Zoom, and it is for a temporary arrangement. So, but a very worthwhile one. So, Amy.
Thank you. Just here, wanted to speak in support of Councillor Kitchen taking on this role, and even though he's not here, acknowledge the extra work that will be for him. And just also wanted to comment on the opportunity this presents for not only looking at the fire management into the future of this site, but it's also a really great opportunity for wetland restoration, and just really good to see the stakeholders involved, including the Department of Conservation, and really pleased that NRC will be part of those conversations about the holistic management of that site into the future. So I'm very supportive. Thank you.
Great. Yes, thank you, Amy. That's a good point. And ideally it wouldn't have to occur, but because we have had those fires up there, and it's been such an ongoing issue, really good to see. Any further comments from councillors? I think we all agree that it's a good idea. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 7.2, adoption of the draft user fees and charges 2022-23 and approval to consult on page 29. So we have
remove this.
3 recommendations. Everyone happy to take them all together? So moved Rick, seconded Joss. Any comments? Sorry, was it your hand, Jack? Yeah.
Yeah. I hope I'm in the right place. On page 72, we're talking about the level of fees. Are we?
No, we're on page 29.
Okay, so we're not talking about the actual charges. Well, we're still on the same document, I think. Adoption
of draft user fees and charges.
Yeah. Well, on page 72, which is part of the same document, just a question. How often do we expect to get applications to change a policy statement or plan? It seemed, I'm sure that's still part of the same document. Yes, I'm sure it is.
So Bruce, or Malcolm, are you available?
Chair, my understanding is very rarely, but if Colin is on the line, he might be able to give a better answer. Colin or Jono?
Jono. Oh, Colin,
yeah.
sorry.
That's now looked after planning, of course, under Jono, but I can answer that. It's very infrequent.
Yeah, thank you. And on page 79, I'm not complaining about it. I just want some explanation. There's no biosecurity fee for wharves and jetties, but there is on buildings for inspection fees. It seems doesn't seem to be well aligned. I don't know. Please, can that be explained to me? Let's have a look.
Is there a staff member that can speak to that?
Chair, can I just check, is Don possibly there? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sure,
Don.
I would have to check myself with that, Jack. The structures, in my understanding, are that charges be applied to marinas as structures, but I'm not sure if there shouldn't be anything else included in that.
Well, the fees are attached to all the other structures like piles and swing moorings and marinas, but this doesn't seem to apply to jetties and wharves. Just wondering if they are actually gathered up under another description.
Well, yes, under the RMA, there are charges, of course, with consents for that, but there are many small kind of structures around our coastlines that haven't been considered with this charge, that have been consented but are privately owned or otherwise.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the consenting fees. I'm talking about the biosecurity charges.
Yeah, they're not included in the marine charge.
No, marine biosecurity charge doesn't seem to be on page 79. It doesn't apply to small jetties, large jetties, or non-marine related buildings, but it does appear to apply to marine related buildings. So I'm sure as to why that is. It doesn't seem to make. It doesn't appear to be any logic
included in that. There are boat sheds included. Yeah,
but not wharves and jetties. And I'm saying, well, because they are structures that staff have to inspect. I'm just wondering why they're not included in yet all moorings are.
I see.
Yeah, they're inspected under RMA consents, but not they don't house marine vessels, or they're not a berth for marine vessels and permanent berth.
Okay, I accept that. Thank you.
Okay, so I see Bruce has got his hand up. Comment, Bruce?
Thanks, Chair. I think Don's just answered it. When we went about applying these charges initially, it was based on those facilities that had vessels, such as boat sheds. So that's why those ones are in there with a marine biosecurity charge. But boat ramps and things like that don't attract that charge. So the policy is correct.
So in that case, are we accepting that there's a risk around jetties and wharves that we may not be inspecting them in terms of a risk of transmission of marine pests?
The original basis was the transfer is done through the movement of vessels, and therefore somebody that has a mooring or be it a pile mooring or a marina mooring or a boat shed has a vessel attached to it. We inspect the vessel. We don't inspect the other structures, and that's the reason why the charge is applied in that manner.
Okay, I'll accept that. I think we may have to look in future at the full range of total, not so much vectors, but places in which marine pests can congregate. Thanks, that's all I've got there. I've got one other question on page 85, apologies, regarding abatement notices. And that's for, I think it's FDE. It seems like abatement notice charge of $311 seems rather low. I guess my question is, would other charges apply to that work that is done when an abatement notice is issued? Follow-up inspections 3.6.4. Per inspection standard follow-up, that's fine, but abatement notice seems very, very low considering we've already got a consent holder that's not abiding by the conditions of the consent.
I'd say that would be possibly something that's dictated to us rather than us dictating it, but I'll go to Colin, and I see Malcolm's got his hand up as well. Yeah,
I see that Malcolm's got his hand up. Do you want me to answer this, Malcolm?
Yeah, no, go for that question. I was with the previous one. Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Craw, the answer is that we work out the sort of average cost of compiling or preparing an abatement notice. Under the RMA, we can only charge actual and reasonable cost for that work. So it's the time required to actually draft and prepare the notice and send it out and issue it.
So that's basically the admin charge, not the inspection charge?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm satisfied.
Yeah,
no further questions.
Charge is separate.
Thank you.
Over to you, Malcolm.
Chair, just to point out that if Councillor Craw looks at page 77, he'll see the explanation that Bruce gave where certain jetties, as soon as they're mooring, are charged. But I accept, this is something that could come through submissions. And again, just to remind Council, this is for consultation, so this is not the final decision.
Okay, thank you, Malcolm. Any further questions or comments? No, so we'll take 1 to 3, I think it was.
Yep, it was.
All those in favour?
All right.
Anyone against? Carried. 7.3, which is on page 100. Adoption of annual plan. 2022-23 supporting information for consultation. And we have another 3 recommendations here. If you're happy to take them all at the same time, could I have mover? Thank you, Joss. Second to Amy. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Apologies for that. Sorry. Questions or comments? Was there a staff member that wanted to talk to this?
Kia ora, Penny. It's Robin Broadhurst here. We're just online to answer any questions if you've got any on this particular item.
Okay, thank you. We have all seen it before. Great document, thank you. So if there's no further questions or comments, all those in favour? Against? Carried. All right, moving on. Adoption of the annual plan 2022-23 consultation document and approval to consult.
Sorry, what page is that one?
That is page 175. And another 3 recommendations here. Moved and seconded, please. Moved Rick, seconded Joss, thank you. Any comments or questions? No, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, 7.5 on page 180. Strategic Intent 2021-2040, Peto Tukuru Māori and Council Working Party. Great to see that we've got here, and very happy with the recommendations. We will take recommendation 1 first, if that's okay, and then we'll move on to the others. So mover and seconder for recommendation 1. Thank you, Jack. Seconded Marty. That's just accepting the report. So all those in favour? Against? Carried. So recommendation 2, we need 3 councillors in C. We need 3 councillors' names in there. I would, Marty, would you like to speak to this one or move, fill in the names?
Thanks for the opportunity there, Penny. Yes, if I can move that yourself as chair is a member, that myself as co-chair of Te TMAC, and that Councillor McDonald is on the one of the 3 names, and that as a reserve would be Councillor Craw. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. So we haven't actually got a reserve in there, but if we could add that, please, that would be great.
Thanks.
Any comments or questions? Oriel, would you like to speak to this one at all?
Te mea tuatahi, kia ora ana koutou katoa, he mihi tēnei ki ngā kaunihira o te rohe o tētai tokerau. No te mea he mea hohonu tēnei ki ngā tangata whenua o tētai tokerau. Tā mātou, tā koutou, tā tātou, hohonutanga o te riti o Waitangi. No reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, Penny. Just acknowledging first that this is an ongoing commitment to a tiriti-based partnership, particularly in relation to the work that we have been doing ongoingly since 2013 with the establishment of the Te Tautokoro Māori and Council Working Party. So, and also in this acknowledging that we've recognised and acknowledged their strategic intent for the tangata whenua members of Te TMAC for 2021 to 2040, and also to there are a lot of work, discussions and workshops, and the councillors committee commitment to understanding what the tiriti means in implementation within a local government context. So apart from that, you'll see in the background, it shows a lot of the work both the governance, the CE and the executive leadership team have been doing to come to this place. I think it is significant to stop and take a moment to recognise that there's a lot of work that's gone into it, and that we've now got a plan to look at how that can be implemented in reality with the councillors and the tangata whenua member reps that are named here in this paper. So just recognising that, kia ora, koutou katoa.
Kia ora, Oriel, thank you. Yes, it is really nice to take this moment. It's the strategic intent from our TTMAC non-elected members is a tonga. Council are fully behind it, this new piece of work, and we're all looking forward to this future journey in progressing our Titiriti partnership responsibilities. So kia ora to you and your team, Oriel, great work, and we, like I say, looking forward to its continuance. And also like to acknowledge all our councillors. We have all endorsed this document, so or this kaupapa. So thank you very much, all councillors as well. Okay, so we'll take recommendation 2 to the vote. So all those in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? And I know there isn't, so kia ora. Passed. 7.6, Tangata Whenua Water Advisory Group, Terms of Reference and Budget, page 185. Nice to see this one in front of us as well. So we have 4 recommendations there, if we're okay to take them all at the same time. Thank you, Joss moved, seconded Marty. Would anyone like to speak to this, or are there any questions or comments? Yes, Joss.
Yeah, actually, Penny, I just wanted to take a moment with this one, purely because this has taken a long time to get to where it is now, but it is evidence of the importance of the work that this group is doing. And we've got some incredible people on this working group who are really helping to set the council up for this next mammoth water plan change. So this, while it might look like a small kind of piece of, you know, tick the box kind of exercise in terms of getting these terms of reference across the line, etc., it's really significant in terms of the work of the council and what's happening in this next water plan change. So my congratulations to the team, because they've worked really hard to get to where we have with these, and now the real work can continue, because I know it's already been happening, but can continue and yeah, to inform what's happening with this plan change. So thank you very much, team.
Kia ora, thank you, Joss. Yes, well said. Certainly endorse your comments about our team, their patience and their perseverance and their skills in getting this together, and very much looking forward to the work. It is a hugely important bit of work for Te Tupuru. Did I see your hand up, Marty? Yes.
Yes, you did. Yeah, just agreeing with what Joss has said. Sometimes it takes time to get things right. It has taken time, but gosh, it's a good outcome. Both that and with the strategic intent, the process is really important to get a good foundation going forward. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you, Marty. Okay, we'll go to the vote. So all those in favour of recommendations 1 through to 4. Thank you. Anyone against? Carried. 7.7, NRC and Master Maritime Holdings MOU. Another great document to get in front of us. We have 3 recommendations there. Can we take them all at the same time? Is there a mover and seconder, please? Moved Rick, thank you. Seconded Jack. So yes, as I said, we have worked quite hard with Master Maritime Holdings on this. Thank you to Bruce and your team, as well as Malcolm. MOUs aren't, you can't enforce them, but they are a really good base, as Marty mentioned, and as strategic and plans in terms of reference, really good base for us to work from and move forward. We have good relationships with Master Maritime Holdings, and they will continue with the assistance of this document. Any comments or questions? No. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, 7.8, Equalisation Reserve Floor, 206. Mover and seconder for the 2 recommendations, please.
Definitely.
Thank you, Rick. Seconded. Somebody? Seconded. Thank you, Jack. Bruce, could I just ask you to run through this for the benefit of councillors, but also people who may be live streaming?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So the intention here with the reserve floor is to ensure that there is a sufficient balance remaining in the fund in any given year, and we're recommending a minimum of $250,000 to enable any unforeseen, unbudgeted forest activities, and mostly in relation to damage from storm repair, to be carried out in a timely manner. I just note that the infrastructure within the forest isn't insured. So if there was a big storm, you lost some roads and that, you needed to repair that, then this would ensure that there is an amount of funding within that reserve at any time to enable those repairs to be undertaken. And that's it, really. Reasonably straightforward kind of proposal.
Thank you, Bruce. Yes, very prudent, and obviously we take our environmental responsibilities very seriously in our forestry, so we need to get things done as soon as possible and have the money to do that. Malcolm.
Chair, if you'd allow me to just speak in support of this paper as well, and just remind particularly the public that we do have the Mount Tiger Forest. It does represent a very significant asset for the regional council, but the major issue is that the income from the asset is very lumpy because of the long 30-year growth time of the forest. So we do have quite long periods in between harvests sometimes. I mean, we have tried to stagger the harvests so that they occur over a number of years, but we are in one of those phases where we do have a break in income and no harvest coming in for a few years. So as Bruce has explained, it's really important that we ensure that there are adequate funds to be able to manage and maintain the forest in the interim years, so that the income to a future council and the community is preserved.
Thank you, Malcolm. So we can go to all those in favour. Anyone against? Carried. Right, so we'll move to 7.9, which is on page 210, but we do have the supplementary information that was emailed separately to us. So we've already covered off 2 with the receipt of the supplementary table items. So I'm assuming we can go straight to 7.9. And there's just the one recommendation there. So could I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Rick. So we've had presentations from the North Power and Top Energy at the at a couple of forums, North Mayoral Forum and as councillors. I think the only question I had in there, Victoria, was to do with the environmental benefits and the considerations. I just wondered if we needed a bit more information in there as to, we say that there are environmental benefits, but maybe we need to say what they are, just to be on record.
Yep, I think under one of the recommendations, it gives us opportunity to do some additions at this point or some changes as this goes through all the 4 council meetings. And yeah, we can make an addition to this submission, this draft at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions from councillors? Yes, Amy.
I think it's just good to note that the submission is about supporting this piece of work in principle and the opportunity that it provides for Northland, but that any individual project would still go through the normal RMA consenting processes where those specifics around environmental impacts and benefits would be assessed. So just that it's a high level of support for the concept and great for Northland, but that environmentally that will be figured out further down the track through the appropriate processes.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. And I guess the other important point is to, well aware that this has to be a good thing for Te Tokoro, not necessarily, well, the secondary benefits are secondary. That has to be good for our region, and that with the ultimate aim that it brings down power pricing and also opens up the doorway for efficiencies and more industry in the region. Marty.
Just a comment fully in favour of the zones. I'll just have to get used to robots on the hills.
Potentially, yes. Anything further? So all those in favour? Anyone against? Carried. Back to our agenda, which is 7.10, Joint Climate Change Adaptation Committee, Terms of Reference, 211. So we just have the one recommendation there. Amy, I'm assuming you'd like to move it. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Marty. Amy, did you have any comments that you wanted to make?
Yeah, thank you, Penny. I just wanted to share my appreciation for the work that's gone into getting this terms of reference sorted. This committee brings together elected members from across Northland's 4 councils, and from each council jurisdiction we also have a tangata whenua member from iwi o hapu. And so it's a broad-ranging group that we're bringing together, and there's complexity there as we are figuring out the terms of reference. So it's really great to have this piece of work completed. The committee has been meeting up until now anyway, but it's always great to have this foundation sorted. So just huge appreciation to staff and everybody who input into the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Jonathan.
Kia ora, Chair. Sorry to jump in here. Just wondering around resolutions where we're just proposing to adopt the terms of reference. That's not necessarily a resolution by council to not discharge the committee at the end of the term, and just wondering whether we need an actual resolution of council there. Apologies, Victoria, I haven't seen this and had a chance to have a chat, but I suspect if Chris was here, she'd be advising us that we actually need a resolution that goes in the minutes that we don't discharge the committee at the end of this term. You could do that quite easily if you have a look on page 213, where you've got the italics there. You could adopt a version of that first sentence as your resolution. It could go that pursuant to clause 37 of Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act 2002, that council resolves that the Climate Change Joint Committee is not dissolved at the end of this triennium.
So that would be a second recommendation.
I suggest that there, then you've got something in your minutes as a resolution, which is required by law, rather than just the adoption of the terms of reference that has it stated there. Just belts and braces.
Just a quick question on that. Are there any other committees that NRC are part of that we would necessarily need to do this one, and the economic development one springs to mind?
Hey, Chair, it's up to council, I guess, as to whether it chooses to do that, but and it's totally up to the incoming. All you achieve is making sure that it's not disestablished. The incoming council can totally review its governance structure. And we've done so in the past for the beach board, for example, for clarity. We made sure that that was the case there.
Yeah, so I'm happy enough to do it now, or we have a look at all our potentially other committees that we may need to do this or want to do this to as well. But happy to do it now. Malcolm, I see you've got your hand up.
Oh, yeah, yes, Chair. I mean, I think there will be other committees that council needs to consider, of which the economic development one is the prime candidate. Civil defence and RTC, you don't have to do that for, because they have their own legislation. But anything where there's a joint committee of the 4 councils together, I'd suggest would be good practice to do it for.
Yes, and I just see there's something from one of our staff members in the chat that this is normally addressed closer to our recess, but there's no harm in bringing it sooner. So we could. Can I suggest that we adopt the terms of reference and then look for an April meeting paper to encapsulate all of them that we may need to do. Marty.
That is actually encapsulated what down the bottom that the joint committee is not discharged to the election. So in adopting the motion, don't we automatically adopt that?
No, I think Jonathan's explained that that's not quite the case. Is that correct, Jono?
Got a chair. My advice is that adopting the terms of reference by itself doesn't achieve what the council is trying to achieve through this paper, and that you should have a resolution specifically doing it. I suspect for the other joint committees that you could have similar papers come forward following the discussion at those joint committees, just like what has happened through the climate change paper. But yeah, if you want to go back to the climate change joint committee to say, yep, it's not disestablished, I think we need to have the resolution here today just to be able to make sure that that is the case.
Just for clarity then, in accepting this, that we're adopting it, we're actually accepting down in the document itself that it's not discharged at the end at the elections automatically. Is that not just saying the same thing twice?
I'm wondering.
At the bottom, the second to last clause in the document.
Yeah, I think it's best to get it quite clear, and okay, having it as a recommendation would be a good idea. Yep. But I'm also wondering, do we need to take these ideas of not disbanding these committees through to these committees so that all councils are on the same page? Because if we go through and say we're not going to disestablish, that may not be what other councils have in their terms of reference or whatever. So maybe we need to put this on hold a little bit and get it done for all. Amy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, kia ora, Penny. So we did discuss this in the joint committee meeting, okay, but I can see, just hearing from Jono, from a process perspective, it is good to have it really tidy, and it may be that it would be good for us to be able to support each of the district councils just to make sure as they move through this process, we all do it consistently. So while I would usually be really keen to just get it added in so it's done, I'm happy for us to take the time, if we can maybe try and achieve it for next month's meeting, to just clarify the process, you know, across our committees, and as part of that, communicate with the other councils that are involved. That would be good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Amy. So I've got Malcolm and then Victoria, maybe John.
Yeah, Chair, just to support your suggestion that it wait, but ideally, what we would do is we would draft one paper and the same identical paper goes to all 4 councils for adoption, so that there's uniformity across it, and we can work that up through the mayoral forum and get agreement, and then have a paper drafted that the identical paper goes to all 4 councils.
Thank you, Malcolm. Yes, we have got time on our side to do that. Victoria?
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, I'm happy to support what the council decides. Just on a note that during the Joint Climate Change Committee, when we endorsed these terms of reference, it was agreed that all the staff involved would take it to their council meetings as soon as possible as well. So they will be taking this to be adopted as well through their councils, just for this particular committee.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Jonathan?
Sure, Chair. I'm just wondering if the work on this particular one has already been done, as in the Climate Change Committee and the council reps and staff have all agreed that this is what we want to do here, and whether going back to the Seas Forum and doing what we're talking about is overbaking it, and actually all staff are doing it, and all we need to do is add that resolution there for this particular purpose, and yes, highlight it for our other joint committees to have the kōrero to see if we want to maintain those committees through the triennial elections as well. But it feels like we're in a place where we can progress this one without needing to go back any further.
I'll talk on.
Yes, of course, there's no guarantee that the other councils will agree. I would prefer to leave it for now and just get our ducks in a row and get the process for all of the committees, if that's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll leave it as is. We'll just take that recommendation as it reads. If there's no further comments, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Certainly good to have it there in italics, for sure. And we're all pretty much on the same page, so I don't see any problem, just process. Okay, so we can move on to items 8, which is operational reports. 8.1 on page 216 is the health and safety report. Get my page up. And we have the one recommendation there that it's received. Do I have a mover and seconder, please?
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you, Joss. Seconded. A bit slow on the seconding team. Amy, thank you. Okay, questions, comments from councillors? No, any comments from staff? No, the work continues despite COVID and vacancies, so well done to all of our staff members for continuing on with this very important work. I don't know where we'd be without you. Okay, so all those in favour? Against? Carried. Chair's report to council, 8.2, page 220. I'll move. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Marty. Any questions on that report? Awesome. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. Best part of the agenda, 8.3, the Chief Executive's report to council. Another very good read, thank you. Oops. Sorry, I'll just get the right page. Could I have a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Terry. Seconded, Jack. I see you've got your hand up, Malcolm. Did you want to mention the staff highlights? There's a slight correction that needs to happen there.
Yeah, Chair, if I can just apologise, I picked up 2 small typos post the release of the report. So the first is in the staff highlights, the first paragraph. The second line should read Group Manager Environmental Services has been appointed to the Land Management SIG. And then also on page, sorry, I just need to find the page number. On page 248, under the bus report, the table is entitled January results, and they're in fact February's results. So apologies for the 2 typos.
Thank you, Malcolm, and congratulations to those 2 staff members that made it onto those groups. Extra work, but I'm sure that will be very worthwhile for both NRC and Northland. Thank you very much for putting your hands up. Questions, comments from councillors? Yes, Jack.
I don't have any questions. I'd just like, for the benefit of staff that are listening and for those that are online, I'd just like to congratulate the staff on this report. In the context of, we live in extremely unusual and stressful times right now, and all the shortcomings of the pandemic have become apparent. We've got supply chain issues, we've got employment issues. In terms of we're understaffed, we've got vacancies we can't fill, and staff are really stressed, and they're working from home largely. And so all those things are contributing to detract from productivity. But if you have a look at the report, it's still a pretty damn fine report. So I'd just like to congratulate the staff on performing so well under pressure. Thank you, Penny.
Thank you, Jack. Any further comments? Yes, Amy.
Just a comment, support what Jack said, but also just a comment on page 230, the terrestrial work that was done in the Mount Tiger Forest or Taika Forest. Just really cool to read about that, and I was super excited to see the photo of the Prickletus because I've always wanted to see one in my whole life, never have. So yeah, just a really cool piece of work and a little bit of bush that I didn't really know had such high values. So really cool to learn about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Malcolm, do you have comments?
No, Chair, nothing additional to add.
I think I just had the one question, and it was around the waste on page 231. Just wondering why our waste has gone up. It started, yeah, it's 6.2 at the moment. Is there someone that could help me out with that? I would have thought there'd be less waste, or is it all packaging? Oh, Phil, is he just joining us? Kia ora, Phil. Oh, I can take that. He can take it offline.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I don't know the specifics on that one.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I guess the other one to do with the litter was whether we take note when we do these litter surveys, whether there's adequate signage or rubbish bins available to people on these beaches. I don't necessarily need an answer, just an observation. Okay, and I think that's all from me. Planning and policy, I just had very good result. Well done to the team. That's to do with the Mangawhai Central Limited. Good version of what could have been something not good. Yep, I'll leave that there, I think. Okay, yes, yeah.
I don't think we've got a civil defence any record of minutes coming up, so I just do want to do a call out to them. They've done an awesome, had a very busy summer, and I just see Tossers attending another fire, so they're full on. They've been full on, done a fantastic job. And I know there's been some staff changes, and I hope all those positions are filled now, because you know the work doesn't seem to stop anytime soon. So well done, Civil Defence. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Nothing else, councillors? All those in favour of accepting the report? Anyone against? Carried. Last of the reports is 8.4, legislative compliance reporting for the period 1st July to 31st of December 2021, page 258. We have the one recommendation there. Mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Joss. Seconded.
Yep.
Rick, thank you. Bruce, did you want to speak to this at all?
Thanks, Chair. I don't really have any comments to add.
That's fine. Comments, questions from councillors? Yes, Joss.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I have one quick question, and Colin is likely to be the one who can actually answer it for me. And I'm not sure if he's still on or not. But in regards to the Resource Management Act and the small incident of the condition of a consent not being achieved and NRC being served with an abatement notice and infringement notice, can you give me a little bit more background on that, please, Colin? I know it's probably only teeny tiny, but how does that work?
Okay, Councillor Yeoman, I can ask that question. like any consent holder, we need to comply with the conditions of our own consents. In this case, that consent was, if you like, essentially held by the council but used by environmental services. So regulatory services still has the duty to monitor the consent, and that's where we established non-compliance with a condition of the consent, and therefore duly took appropriate enforcement action to address that non-compliance.
To me, there's a systems issue if we are in a position where we're not actually meeting our own consent conditions. Jono, did you have something that you could potentially add to this for me, please?
Kia ora, Councillor. Yeah, this related to a FIF Dune Lakes project that we've got, and specifically related to a condition around notification of the regional council that we were intending to undertake the activity. So we've got notification requirements of council, and we missed the timeframe for notifying council within that timeframe. As a result of that, we have worked with regulatory services and put in place more. We've reviewed our systems and processes to make sure that we have a robust checking of all of our consent conditions. We already did, but we've put in some more processes to ensure that this doesn't occur again. Agree, we need to be an exemplar of meeting consent conditions, and on this occasion we did miss that one.
Excellent, that was the answer I was looking for. Thank you very much. That's all I needed.
My understanding was that it had been notified, but then the work was postponed, and so therefore the notification just slipped through the noose there. Malcolm.
Correct, Chair. We had three. We tried lining up the works on 3 occasions, and due to a combination of weather and COVID, we had to keep rescheduling it. But when we rescheduled it for the 3rd time, we didn't do the notification that we needed to do.
Thank you, Jonathan. Malcolm.
Yeah, Chair, I think the point of note, while it's disappointing that we've failed to meet our own requirements, it is important that we transparently demonstrate to the public that we hold ourselves to the same standards, if not higher, than what we would expect from anyone else. And if we do make a mistake, then we hold ourselves to account. So I think that's one of the important parts of this exercise is, yes, it allows us to improve our own processes, but it also ensures that we hold ourselves to account in a transparent way that the public can see it.
Yeah, thank you, Malcolm. Definitely. Any further questions on this item? Okay, all those in favour? Against? Carried. So we can move on now to items 9, which is receipt of committee minutes and working party group updates. And this is on page 260. So yeah, a little bit of confusion here. We'll go to the subcommittee meeting minutes first, and I note that there's a planning and regulatory working party item there, but that needs to go down to the next item, which is the working party updates. So we'll just go to Kaipara Moana as the item here. So we'll just move that yeah, we can just stick with the recommendation for the committee minutes to be received. Move and seconder, please. Thank you, Amy. Seconded. Seconded somebody, please.
Second, Chair.
Thank you, Joss. Okay, so we've just got the Kaipara Moana Remediation Joint Committee minutes that need to be discussed here. I'll just make a few comments and then I'll open to Amy and Joss if they'd like to make any further ones. So the action tracker, really good idea, and it's certainly something that councils are used to, and I think it was fully endorsed by the Kaipara Uri members as well. Really good way of keeping up to date and keeping things moving in our meetings. The 6-month report has been successfully signed off. Tameitarangi was endorsed as the Kaipōuri governance representation for the terms of reference review. And okay, and that's all I had. Anything further from Amy or Joss? Yes, Amy.
Just to talk about the surge planting initiative, which came through that meeting, which is really exciting because it's been a long process of establishing the Kaipara Maurikura and getting the operational arm of that project up and running. And this season of winter is a really, really important planting season. So they've got a really cool piece of work set up, which they're just getting rolling now, which is all about basically trees on the ground and demonstrating outputs in terms of planting, which is really great. And just also that catchment reference group work is really important because that's about the headwaters, and that's an area where maybe we have been less able to liaise with hapu and landowners and get their input into projects. So just really good to have those reference groups set up, which acknowledges mana whenua in those locations, and also just sort of brings together some parties that otherwise aren't as feeling as easily heard or represented at the joint committee table. So just, yeah, some really good stuff happening.
Thank you, Amy. Joss?
Yeah, just one further comment to add to that, and that would be the difference that we're now seeing as a governance group of having the Puatataki just indoor there and the staff complement of the Maurikura. It's really now starting to get to the point where all of the foundations that have been set, we are actually getting more happening on the ground, and that is, of course, what everybody's aim has been right from the word go, but it's very difficult to do so until you've actually got the staff and the right structures in place. And now we're really at that point where we're starting to see some significant progress. And I think this next sort of year is going to be quite an exciting one in terms of all that's happening and all the connections that are being made, the links with the Jobs for Nature and having people employed as part of this process as well. So I think all that we have hoped for in terms of a council going into this whole concept right from the word go in terms of the development of the business plan is really starting to actually get some momentum, and it's still slow, but we are really starting to get there and starting to get some traction. And I think that's what's starting to come through from our meetings and the workshops that we're having, and having the degree of professionalism that we have there now with the staff on board the Maurikura is really starting to pay dividends. And I cannot highlight that enough, quite frankly. Our teams who were working prior to that had done a phenomenal job given the pressures that they were under with their own jobs, and now we're really starting to see the benefits of having the Maurikura in place. So just wanted to highlight that and let everyone know that things are actually starting to really be very exciting and going in the direction that we want them to.
Thank you, Joss and Amy. Yeah, and it's, as well as being exciting, this planting season is critical. We need to get some plants in the ground. So anyone live streaming or councillors, staff, if you know of people that may qualify for grant funding in the Kaipara catchment area, please send them to the KMR website. We do need their participation and support, and looking to catchment catchment groups as well to provide that assistance. So yeah, can't highlight that enough as well. Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, or are there any questions or comments from councillors? No. So thank you. So we'll move that that report be accepted. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And now we'll move on to working party updates, and this is where the Biosecurity and Biodiversity working party update, the minutes will be included. We're on page 273 for anyone that needs to be. So we will take a verbal update from Councillor Craw. Are you okay to do that, Jack?
Sorry.
You're on mute. So this was a meeting on the 23rd of February.
Thank you. Actually, the land and water and reg services ones are in there as well, page 265 onwards. But anyway, I'm happy to give a verbal. Yeah, good meeting. First since October, because we had a COVID delay. There was only the one outstanding item where the working party were keen for need for us to move quickly on scoping the biosecurity climate change plan, because it has considerable flow-on effects to the rest of our climate change adaptation implementation plans. So there was the thought that we could try and get an extra, perhaps up to 50k out of unbudgeted expenditure to start the program now, but given that we've only got 3 months before the end of the year, I think we may not need to spend that money, but that we should still make a start on trying to find a consultant to actually do this work, to do the scope the engagement with the primary sector and with HAPU, so we can make a really early start and actually completing it and paying for it early in the next financial year, sometime July, August, or something like that. So we're still moving forward on that. What else has happened? We had a very good update from Predator Free. It seems to be that we've got really getting some traction here out of the heads. Dune Lakes program is proceeding really well, especially at Lake Karaka, with a piece of additional work over and above the budget. We had a really good presentation on dogs on beaches from Far North resident who's now, and we're assisting them with moving forward to trying to get some improvements to the Far North District Council bylaw on dogs. Kiwi Coast gave us an excellent presentation on what they've achieved throughout the north, and that's actually amazing, what they have achieved with the 180k that we give them and all the money that they get from elsewhere, but also that they do it all with 2.5 FTEs. It's just quite an incredible piece of work there. And also we're getting really good progress with our feral deer program at Russell, which is looking really good. We've got everyone's aligned there, the local iwi hapu and DOC and landowners and our staff. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Jack. And so I'll go through the other working party meetings as well. So we've got planning and reg. There were 2 meetings there, Josh.
Thank you, Chair. We'd somehow managed to miss our December ones in last council meeting, so they were added in there as well. And then, of course, we had meeting on the 1st of March too. At the end of the day, the biggest chunks of work for planning at the moment are our water plan change, and most our significant chunks of work are also coming through full council, just because they are of such importance to the region and to the council. So that makes my working party meetings quite nice and short and snappy, actually, which is rather nice. Having said that, there's a few things that, I mean, one of the ones in particular that we've now put in as a standing item is actually the wastewater treatment plants and how those are tracking, where the consents are at. And I'm a bit of a stickler for those ones. So I've been keeping a very close eye on what's happening in terms of that space. And one of the other pieces of work that's probably worth mentioning is around the wetland mapping. And that project hopefully moving forward to actually start looking at mapping the wetlands across the region. So we've got a much more accurate assessment of what is actually out there, and a clearer definition actually on what wetland is with the Ministry for the Environment. And this has been some stuff that's dropped out of the whole court process for our regional plan. But will actually impact the entire country. So really important and significant chunks of work that this council, through its planning processes, is actually tending to be a leader across the country. So While my working party meetings might look like they are quite nice and short, the degree of work that is happening in there and the impact that some of that will have actually for the whole of the country is quite significant. So it's well worth mentioning that, and just congratulating the calibre of the team that we've got on there, who are continuously trying to work within the legislation and the system to get us where we need to as a region. So that's all I've got really as far as my brief update goes. And if anyone's got any questions, please let me know.
Okay, we'll go through all the working parties and we can take questions and comments afterwards as well. Joss, thank you for that. So next one, and apologies if these are slightly out of order, it's just what I've got written down here to make sure I collect them all. TTMAC, Marty. You're on mute.
Happens every time.
Yeah.
You'd think I'd learn. Yeah, you've all been there. You've seen how full the agendas are, and I really appreciate staff input from the top. Thanks, Malcolm, Oriel, in having these full agendas, and so tidy too that one good thing that we've got a shared kaupapa, so there's both with the council and non-elected members, and I really appreciate the numbers that are turning up from the non-elected members, and they're all working very hard, and that's that caucus meeting from 9:30 to 11 has been really productive in being able to move the process forward for a relatively straightforward meeting from our full meeting. So we've been looking closely for a while at the capacity and capability, representation, water and marine, and the climate change, and we've got to focus a bit more on the economic development, which is what will happen with Northern Inc. Coming to meet us. But I'm really appreciative again of the momentum that we're getting and a bit of clarity. And I must put that down to both working with the strategic intent with the 5 PO, but also the clarity of the document, the agenda that we're receiving, and the minuting is making it much easier to be able to sort of reflect on where we are and how to move it forward to the next step. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you, Marty.
Take any questions. Cheers.
Yeah, and those alternate month HUIs are working well too.
Yes, they are. Yeah, that's every cloud's got a silver lining, and I've got to say that as you say, that the Marae Hui, Marae Hui, are working well.
Good, thank you. So next on my list is climate change, Amy.
Thanks, Penny, and tō tōku that, Māori. I think TTMAC's been really productive lately. So climate change, we had a good meeting. We had the happy news that we have some staff on board, filling some quite crucial vacancies. So that was a great start to the meeting. And amazingly, even with those vacancies, we had a really good update on things that had still been achieved. A really good piece of work had been done in relation to electric vehicles and understanding the needs, I guess, of our communities and population, and a bit of, I guess just sort of a baseline report really on EVs for Northland. We also had a look at adaptation projects. Each of the district councils is undertaking a pilot adaptation project with a coastal community or a climate change impacted community. And so we have seen that Kaipara are going to be progressing their project, and indicated that WDC and FNDC are very close to being ready for that as well. So NRC is supporting with some financial support and also technical support. So really good to see those getting underway. We talked a little bit about electrification of the boat, the NRC Waikere replacement, and as we had agreed at council, that in itself is unaffordable, but there were some other recommendations in the report that was written regarding the boat and its efficiency. So we looked at those and are happy where that has landed in terms of the hull shape and the type of engine. And we also had a little update on electrification of the bus fleet, which remains highly unaffordable, but an aspiration and something important that we probably need to be grappling with more at a national level, where we can coordinate with other councils to get some more affordability in terms of making that transition here in Northland in the future. So I'm just looking at the points that are in front of all of us. And the other thing that we spoke to, which I'm really looking forward to doing, is just how we can get a slightly better relationship happening between the Climate Change Working Party and the transport committees that NRC has, and just the relationship between transport and our obligations under climate change and emissions reduction. So something we have been doing at quite a basic level and probably doing quite well at a staff level, but in terms of governance, there's some more connection there that we can grow. So looking forward to continuing that mihi. So thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Amy. And we have two water and land working party updates there, and unfortunately Justin's not here to speak to them. So any questions or comments for Justin, councillors, I'll suggest you address them directly to him via email or other. Are there any comments or questions for any of the other council chairs of those committees and working party, that working party? No. Awesome, good summaries, thank you very much. Some great work going on in those committees. Okay, so we will, we've got a mover and seconder for 9.2, did I, Melanie? I think I did. Yep, okay. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Melanie, are you? Oh, you're the NRC live stream. I'm assuming someone's there taking minutes.
Yeah. Kia ora, Penny. Yes, I'm taking minutes.
Sorry. Said an awful thought there for a while. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so that brings this part of the meeting to a close. And we'll move into public excluded. So thank you very much to everyone who has live streamed today. Hopefully you've received some good information and some updates and see all the great mahi that is going on with NRC. So with that, I will move that we do move into public business with public excluded. The two recommendations there. Seconded, Rick, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. So I'll just wait for the live stream to stop. Perhaps we'll have a 5-minute break, councillors, till 12 o'clock, till noon.